Welcome, everyone, to the next installment of the Growth Acceleration series. Today, we're hosting someone who actually have gotten to work quite a bit with, or have at least received a lot of good feedback from, because he is the club growth director of District 71. District 71, for those of us who don't know, it's essentially England north of London, as well as Wales, Scotland, and all of Ireland, the whole island of Ireland. The webinar today will be talking about how to empower your workforce. And I think this is something that's extremely important for all of us as Toastmasters, especially as district leaders or potential club sponsors. Steve, as the CGD of District 71, joined over 10 years ago. He's held a variety of roles. He's been a division director, area director, and he thinks that starting new clubs is one of the most exciting things we can actually do, right? He started six of them in three different countries. Which countries? I'm actually really curious.
UK, US, Ireland.
Nice. Great. Woo. Uh, he has a background in information technology and HR technology and manages global HR systems for a large hospitality company. He spends a lot of time on Zoom. I think we all do actually, especially as Zoom district leaders. We all spend a lot of time, and we've always wondered, of course, are we nerds? Are we geeks? Especially because of this. He's one of them as well, I think, uh, myself included. So today, for his webinar, Empowering Your Workforce, Steve chose the strategy of how to actually engage with employers, right? This is where the concept was born. What they've done, what they've learned, and they weren't easy lessons, right? So, without further ado, Steve Campion, you have the meeting.
Thank you very much, Leo. Thank you, Leo, for inviting me. Thank you to the District 109 team for putting on this wonderful series. And I have a question. Raise your hand if you've ever had a moment in your life that has transformed the way you've seen the world, that has opened up new potential, new opportunities, new ways of connecting with people. I see a few hands. This is wonderful. Now, be honest. Did that happen in a meeting, in an office, at work? Just me? I have a story to share. The story about how I got involved in Toastmasters. And I'm a very lucky person. I'm a lucky person because the company I work for gave me that opportunity. What I'd like to do today is share a little bit about that journey, but also what we in District 71 are doing to engage with employers, to raise awareness within employers, and as a result, grow the Toastmasters organization and give more people this wonderful experience that we all know and love. I do have a presentation to share, but what I would like to do is ask questions as we go along. Please put comments in the chat. I will do my best to answer them. And then we can have a nice chat, question and answer session at the end. But I mentioned that being in a meeting, transforming your life, and I'll share the story. I was walking down the corridor at the company that I worked, and I saw a sign, notice on the wall, said, "Come to a Toastmasters demo meeting." And I thought, what's a Toastmaster and what's a demo meeting? But sure, I'll go along. It was one of those phases where it's like, I'll go along to anything. Let's see what it's all about. I couldn't have made a better decision than to go to that event for two reasons. I realized that one of the things that absolutely terrified me was having to stand up at work and present to the team. But the other reason was I had something in common because the team absolutely were terrified about me standing up and presenting to them. So I knew I needed to do something about it. And when I saw this demonstration meeting and the fact that the company wanted to potentially start a club, I thought, this sounds like a fun thing to do. There were a whole bunch of us. There were about 70 people in that room when that demonstration meeting happened. And at the end, a part of the demonstration meeting, they showed a speech. They explained what the Toastmaster role is. They had an evaluation. And at the end, they said, and if you'd like to sign up and get involved, just let us know. And I saw a hand go up and I realized it was mine. That's how I became the vice president of education of a brand new club, not knowing anything at all about how to start clubs. Sometimes the best ways of doing things is to not really know how to do it because you don't know how not to do it. We discover things as we go along. If you encountered any situations like that, I would love to hear from them. Post them in the chat. And I'm going to start sharing my screen. Can everyone see a slide that says empower your workforce? We can.
Yes, yes, we can.
As Eyal said, what I'd like to do is share with you the journey that we've gone on in District 71. I've got the privilege, pleasure, delight, and anxiety of being the Club Growth Director this year. And I can share with you why we chose engaging with employers as our strategy for club growth. In addition to all the other activities that we're already doing, the area we really wanted to invest in was engagement with employers. I'll share what we've done, what we've learned, also known as all the mistakes we've made so that then other people don't need to make them, and what we plan to do next and how to get involved in that. District 71, as Leo said, we are Ireland and the UK. Specifically within the UK, there's a very interesting dividing line between District 91 that we share the Brishals with and District 71. One of the things that's, I think, interesting about our district is when we look at the split of community clubs and corporate clubs. I did some analysis earlier in the Toastmasters year, and I discovered there were only 5 other districts in the entire world that have a higher proportion of community clubs than we do. So in our district, we are not in the habit of creating corporate clubs. We don't have a history of creating corporate clubs. So that raises an interesting question. Why the heck would you build your strategy on doing the thing that you don't know how to do? There's a number of reasons for it. One of them is that's where the people are. If we think about what Toastmasters can offer to people, what it can offer to people in their lives, and the impact it can have in their professional careers and their personal lives, often it's the people who are maybe early or mid-career that will get the most benefit out of what Toastmasters has to bring. Those are people in work or entering the workforce, and that's the place where we basically need to meet them. The other reason for it is that employers and organizations need people with the skills that Toastmasters can offer. If only they knew that Toastmasters could help their teams develop those skills. So I think I just noticed a comment from Leo. Thank you. Yes, you're right. The reason we invested in this area is because it's where we are not currently don't currently have strength. There's another reason, which is it gives an opportunity for our Toastmasters, for our members, to learn something new, to learn to engage with people in new ways and in different ways. So what did we do? Well, we pulled the team together. We had some ideas. We thought, great, we've got this strategy. We've got this plan. We want to engage with employers. What does that mean? Well, we need to get messages across. We need to advertise, we need to promote. We need to raise awareness. We need to know how to talk to people in corporations, know how to talk to people in organizations. And so we did quite a bit of brainstorming, quite a bit of conversations, came up with a plan, and we considered advertising. We considered cold calling. We considered different approaches, but the approach that we hit on was to run a series of events, specifically events where we can invite HR professionals and business leaders to come along, learn about the process and the idea of learning through experience and peer learning within an organization, and then how Toastmasters can help. Sound like a good plan? Sound like it would work really well? So the idea was, let's just get a big room in a hotel or a venue somewhere, invite 100 companies in, and leave that room with 50 applications to organize and a whole bunch of chartered clubs ready to go. I really would love to tell you that that's exactly what happened. That is absolutely not what happened. Because we started looking at where to do this, where to focus our efforts. And then we thought, let's start to build the plan, the structure, and the events around that. Let's look at where we wanted to focus our efforts. And this is a piece of analysis that I believe could be very helpful for all districts to do. We looked at the countries that we cover. We looked at the centers of population there. Where were the big towns and cities? What's happening from a demographic perspective? So which towns, cities, and areas are growing? And where do we already have a Toastmasters presence? One of the things that we realized pretty early on was it would be great to say, yes, we want to start creating 17 clubs in a place where there is a gap on the map. But if there's a gap on the map, that also means that there aren't a lot of Toastmasters in that area that can provide the help, the guidance, the support, and mentoring that's required. So we wanted to look at places where there were existing clubs and where there was the capacity to create more clubs. One interesting thing came out as we were talking to area directors and division directors and the broader team about this as an approach, which was, yeah, but there's already a lot of clubs in Dublin. There's not enough space for more clubs in Dublin, as an example. And you can see on this chart, what we did is we worked out where we have a lot of clubs, where we have our current clubs and where we have the potential and where we have the potential for growth, and we divided one by the other. So once again, looking around the world, we look at the population of Dublin and the demographics of Dublin with our 20-ish clubs. And then we look at Auckland in New Zealand with its 65 clubs. You look at Manchester, the population and the geographical size of Manchester, where we've got 2-3 clubs now. Sorry, 5 clubs, we've grown another one, where we've got a small number of clubs. And then you look at Atlanta in the USA with its 140 clubs. These are a lot of the conversations that are helpful to have with people to start to move past those assumptions about what can we do? Where is there the space? Where is the capacity? Any observations on that? Questions? No. I'll keep going and interrupt me with questions.
Actually, sorry, Steve, I had a quick question.
Please.
You talk about the numbers, but what about the sort of the demographics? So you're looking at the age profile, because you may have some place with, large elderly population or large student population. How much did you take into consideration of that?
That is an excellent question. What we looked at when we were working to select places, I'm going to go page up on my screen if I can make this work. Oh. I mentioned earlier, backup laptop. What we looked at was the population, changes in population, and the number of clubs and experience that we've got there. We also did look at something else that wasn't included in this slide. With the wonderful help of AI and ChatGPT and various other tools to help us with some research. We looked at where is the population changes where English is not the first language. Yeah, where are the centers of population where English is not the first language? Because that population can get a lot of benefit out of learning from Toastmasters and learning in the Toastmasters world. We did also do a little bit of a look at age profiling, but that didn't seem to make a big difference in terms of the overall analysis and what we did. And what we did from this list is speak to our division directors. Our division directors were covering all of these different areas and ask them, where do you want to focus efforts? We wanted to select 4 places where we wanted to focus our efforts. first one that came up was Dublin, actually. And I appreciated the comment about Cork. There was a big debate about that one. It's like, Cork's next. Was Dublin, Milton Keynes, looking at this list, Manchester and Birmingham, because that's where we saw the greatest potential in terms of investment, industries, and the support that we have from the local clubs. Nigel, I see you've got your hand raised.
Yeah, wondering about income. I mean, it sounds from you're not targeting the poorest communities, right?
It's an excellent question. Part of the thought process here is we definitely want to be engaging with employers as part of this analysis. So the actual income of the employees wasn't a consideration. I think it's a very good point, but that wasn't a consideration of something that we looked at. And actually, I would say we're pretty fortunate in Ireland and the UK in terms of income relative to cost of living and things. Leo.
You mentioned, looking at potentially places, and I know I will let you move forward, but potentially places where English is not the native language. But then you mentioned, okay, in Auckland, where it's the native language of English, it's 65, I think you mentioned. In Atlanta, very much native English, also 140 clubs. So, is there a bit of a dissonance here that I'm missing? I'm just curious.
It's a good point. I don't believe so, because once again, back to the purpose here is to be engaging with employers and working out sort of where we invest. What we see is that people for whom English is not a first language often get a lot more, well, not more benefit, can get a lot of benefit. So it becomes a useful selling point when talking to either organizations or individuals about additional benefits of Toastmasters. But as was being talked about, this wasn't our primary factor. As we went through the analysis, we were really looking at where do we have clubs? Where are there centers of population and centers of populations that are growing? And importantly, from the division team perspective, where do they believe they can support the growth of the clubs as well? But ultimately, I would love to have clubs everywhere. I'll move on, and I'm happy to just take questions as we go along. So we started to plan our first event, and that's when, as a team, we all looked at each other and went, well, how are we going to do this? That initial idea of hire a hall somewhere and get a whole bunch of people into was proving very difficult. It was proving costly. It was proving a real challenge to get the logistics worked out, in addition to a lot of the promotion. And then, as often happens, it's a serendipitous or a lucky side conversation that really unlocked things for us. And in this case, the wonderful side conversation was, we have a Toastmasters club in Microsoft in Dublin, and they're a delightful club. They're wonderful people. And it got mentioned that, oh, by the way, last year we hosted the area contests. Well, thank you. That's great. That's wonderful. And then the wheels start going of, would you mind hosting an event where we invite other companies to come and discover Toastmasters? And I was just delighted by the response, which was, let's go find out. And the answer came back, yes, sure, we can do that. We had to work with the Microsoft team. We had to work with the club. The club were fantastic and said, well, we will host this event where we collectively invite other organizations and other employers to come along to learn more about Toastmasters and what Toastmasters has to offer. They also very graciously, very kindly let us use their logo, say it was hosted by Microsoft, and they provided everything for us, and that was just delightful. One of the big lessons we've learned from this is we don't need to go find all of our own resources. If we can work with an existing club or an existing organization that can support us in this, then it solves so many of our problems and so many of our challenges. Nestor, I see you've got your hand raised.
Yes, that's a great initiative, and it's something that is about to pop here in Switzerland, in Lausanne specifically. We're looking forward for the corporate summit, focusing on exactly that, targeting big companies who can bring some speakers, targeting on top so we can reach the bottom, so we can create clubs and put the added value and blah, blah, blah. Yes. However, my point is, How did you brand the event that you're moving forward for corporate? It was a summit, it was a conference, it was what is the protocol in Toastmasters that you use, the framework, so we can understand a little bit more, Speechcraft, for example, so we can see how to target it and maybe replicate it in a healthy way for us. Thank you.
Excellent question. And I'd love to share that, because I'll share what we first tried, and then I'll share what we've learned to do and what we're doing more of now. The first event that we did, as I said, we did it in November. We had to work out how to do event registration. We had to work out how to work with Microsoft on everyone needs to be registered in advance and get badges and all that wonderful stuff. And we also worked on an agenda. I was very blessed. So many people said, I want to come along and help. This is exciting. This is great. And we ended up with an agenda that had a member of the club at Microsoft who was the Toastmaster, and she did a phenomenal job. Plus, she organized the fact that they ran it in person and online as a hybrid and all that wonderful stuff. So she organized that. We had a speech from someone at Microsoft about the benefits to the organization. We had our regional advisor, Lillian Shafter-Kohler, came along, and she talked about Toastmasters and how organizations can benefit. We had someone zooming into the virtual meeting who was an area director, but themselves had been a member of a Toastmasters club at university, talking about how it helped him with his career. We had a panel interview. We had a panel session where they were talking about DEI and community engagement and everything. And it had so much in it. It was overwhelming. I think the conclusion from all of that was we as Toastmasters were so enthusiastic and so positive about wanting to get across all of these things that Toastmasters can offer and all of the things that Toastmasters can do, that from an audience perspective, it's like, well, my head's exploding now. Also, what we discovered at that event was the majority of people who decided they wanted to come to the event were people who already knew Toastmasters pretty well anyway. So we needed to learn from that experience and decide what to do next, how to update the format. And this is something that I think sometimes in Toastmasters we do this. We get so enthusiastic about the organization, what it does, how it does it, that we want to share everything. And one of the things that we've been trying to learn to do is to pare that back, to simplify the messaging. And Nestor, you mentioned Speechcraft. We did have a conversation about whether to go out promoting Speechcraft as the way in. We're doing that as if in the conversation with an organization, it appears to be a good option. And if we can support it locally, then that's what we'll be offering. But it's not the primary conversation because it requires a lot of support from the local club or local clubs in order to deliver that. Any screenshots about things that we did? You know, we built the registration pages. I built a page on our website with information about work-based programs. And then I'll skip that. And what we concluded, having done a big wrap up, having talked to some people who came to the event, having talked to the team that was involved in the event, what we learned was the big thing that we got out of that first one was all those companies that either already had clubs or were intimately involved in clubs said, I just learned so much about Toastmasters I never knew anything about. So we took a step back and we created an initiative we call Corporate Connect. We got 2 of our corporate clubs to chair this program, to chair this initiative. And it's now a monthly session between committee members of all of our corporate clubs. I say all of them. We invite them all. We got a little over 60% of them at the most recent call, and we're trying to work on the rest. And the idea behind the Corporate Connect initiative is to build those connections between our corporate clubs, to learn from each other, to share best practices. And then there's a nice little side effect of, as a district, as an organization, a team, we get a lot more insight into what works within corporates and what doesn't. So when it comes to talking to other organizations, 2 things happen. we are in a better position to have a conversation and say, oh yeah, that's exactly like this other company over here, or your need is like this other company over there. And secondly, by building those connections, we are actually able to make those introductions. So as we're talking to a organization or an employer who are thinking about Toastmasters, one of the things we like to do pretty early on is say, let me go introduce you to another organization similar or that's gone through a similar process or similar experience. And that's what Corporate Connect is allowing us to do. These sessions, they start off being kind of informal networking. Then they turned into, how do you get executive sponsorship within the organization? Then there's been conversations about how to grow membership, how to use the education program. And the next one's going to be more about pathways and embedding pathways within learning within organizations. One thing that came out of this that I'd be very interested to hear experiences from other districts is we've discovered, we talk about corporate clubs, but there's no real one type of corporate club. I believe there's about 3 styles of corporate club. There is the type of, sorry, when I say corporate, I mean organizational. It doesn't necessarily need to be a commercial organization, but organizational clubs. The first type are where the Toastmasters program is embedded in the way that they develop their staff. In those cases, that's where someone from HR or learning and development or organizational capability, whatever they call it, is intimately involved in the Toastmasters program. They promote the program. They pay the fees. People take time during work hours to have the meetings, and they are continuously engaged in it being a method of development for their staff. 2 organizations I know of in our district, what they actually do is they even have their Toastmasters clubs deliver Speechcraft as part of a training program for some of their new managers and new team members. That's what I would call embedded clubs. They're very highly supported and the value is being demonstrated within the organization. There's another type of club where the club is supported by the organization. Now, that could be maybe they pay the fees, maybe they have meetings in work hours or more likely to be lunchtime. In the payment of the fees, sometimes they're treated as training educational costs, sometimes they're charged to individual cost centers, sometimes they're treated as professional subscriptions, which creates all manner of interesting tax implications. But those supported clubs are ones where there's a lot of potential to move them kind of up that ladder. They're the ones where there's a lot of potential to say, well, you're already supporting this. Why don't you get more value out of your investment? Why don't you get more value out of what you're already doing within the organization and what you're already doing with the team to help them develop and help your organization develop? There's a third type, which is where they are, what's the right word? Encouraged, shall we say. In those organizations, quite often the members might pay for themselves, or it might be done more as a sort of social or networking or the diversity related activity or social related activity. In those organizations, those are the ones that rely so much more on the individual members running the club. And they're kind of like a community club, but with some sort of reimbursement, or a community club with the shared interest of being within one organization. Those are the ones that can be very interesting to help try and develop up the ladder. I see, Nigel, you've raised your hand.
I mean, it would be great to know if some of these companies that are really, they bought into the Toastmasters model, and whether some of these companies also have branches or in Switzerland or in District 109, because obviously, for example, Harshita, who's here, she started a new club in BMS, and BMS already has clubs in the States, and it was so much easier for her to say, look, we've got these successful clubs in the States, we can do the same thing here. And so therefore, if this information was available, that would make it easier for D109 maybe to say, yeah, how about this, something like that. Thank you.
Nigel, thank you for the question. I think it's a very good point. And one of the things to share, Leor, I know you've got access to it, is that club growth directors, by talking to World Headquarters, we can get a list of sponsored clubs. And Nigel, I'll share my contact details with you. I'm happy to work with you as well. And we can compare notes on where there are opportunities for that kind of collaboration. Because you speak to something that I'd like to come on to later about how we can collectively work together. Because as you correctly point out, Nigel, quite often organizations or large organizations, they don't just have one location. And if we can build the relationship with the organization and we can show them, well, you're doing this here, why don't you go do that there? It's a much richer offering. Yeah. So I'll carry on with Corporate Connect, because it's, as an initiative, I believe something that has made a difference to how we're interacting with our clubs. It's building better connections with our corporate clubs and their unique needs, and we're learning from it as well. One of the initiatives that we started as part of Corporate Connect is Show the Value. And this is a webpage where we're asking our corporate clubs to contribute to this and start talking about how can you demonstrate as a corporate club, how can you demonstrate to your business leaders or your organizational leaders the value that your club brings, either in training people, transforming people, improving networking, contributing to the culture, running events. I'm absolutely blessed. I'm a member of a corporate club, and we have a regional town hall meeting every 2-3 weeks. Most of the time now, it's the Toastmasters that are running those meetings. And so we're showing that these skills can be developed. And we never go past one of those regional meetings without someone mentioning Toastmasters and what the club's been achieving and what our members have been achieving. And it's a matter of absolute pride. So getting involved, not Toastmasters being a thing on the side, but Toastmasters being part of the way the organization works and talking about it is what makes a big difference. I would like to share, I can share this page with you. I'll also share one of the things that an organization, RCI Europe, posted on LinkedIn, because they and their club officers decided, well, let's shout about this. Let's tell other people, not just our own organization, what we're doing. I know Elizabeth Jordan has seen this before. I'm very proud of it. If I can make this pop up on the screen. Here we go. Can everyone see this? So they posted as an organization, hey, we've got a Toastmasters program and we're so proud of it and what difference it makes to us and our employees. I'm going to play this little video and tell me if the audio works.
I'm getting the confidence to speak in public.
A valuable experience for those looking to enhance their communication and leadership skills.
I can feel my confidence growing.
This has added personal as well as professional value.
I highly encourage anyone considering it to do it.
A supportive and encouraging environment in which to grow. Being in Toastmasters is a great way of building confidence, adaptability, and being innovative.
It really benefits my professional life by making my communication skills better.
Inspiring and motivating.
Toastmasters is my safe space to learn and develop.
Toastmasters has literally helped me feel less uncomfortable outside my comfort zone.
Do we like that? I got ever so excited when I saw that. The reason for this, well, aside from the fact that I'm just ever so proud of what this club has done, is that they are going even beyond their own organization. They are using the fact that they've got the Toastmasters program as something to be proud about and to shout about outside of their organization. It means that when they are recruiting, when they are engaging people, when they are just talking to their customers about what they do, this shows something about their culture and how people grow within the organization. I'm particularly pleased to say that this organization, I can share the link to it as well, is the person who did that video. I said, can you show other people how to do that? And he said, sure. So this is the other big message here is in building and engaging corporates and corporate clubs, talk to the ones you've already got, because they've got great stories to share and they can contribute a lot. One of the things that person's done, and it's on this page and I can share it, is he's put together a guide for people on how to create that video and the materials and the downloadable materials. And all you need to do as a club is plug in your content. Yeah. So we are, through Corporate Connect, promoting this more. I have not yet got another club to do it, but we will do soon. But the idea is to start developing this content and this messaging with the clubs. So having gone through all that, I said, we have this great idea, and then we did an event, and then we learned something from the event, and now what next? We've concluded with the idea of running these events and getting messages across. We need to be more consistent in running them, and we need to be more focused in the structure and style of them. I mentioned when we ran the event in Dublin in November, it was we're just going to talk to you and I'm going to have 17 people who are very enthusiastic talk to you. We've now simplified the model. We now have decided, we originally were District 71, something. We've created a page, a website called empoweryourworkforce.org. I would like to encourage any district to contribute to this, to get involved in this, to start running your own. And if you want to run your own event like this, let me know and we'll feature it on this page. Because what we've done is create a page, I'll share this here, Empower Your Workforce, where we
I'm getting the confidence to speak in public.
He's so enthusiastic and confident. Where we now list all of the Empower Your Workforce events, some information, some videos, some how to get in touch, and some testimonials. So we want to build this out. And what we've done now is committed to running multiple events. We've run, I believe, three so far online. We're running an online Empower Your Workforce event every single month, plus in-person events for teams that want to run them in person. So there's one coming up next week at a different organization in Dublin. Once again, we were absolutely blessed. That was the East Point Business Park. They've said, sure, we'll host it. And they're organizing that event. We're going to be running another one in Solihull in person as well. From a format perspective, we've very much simplified it down to being just 1 hour. We have a host or Toastmaster just making introductions. We then hear from one person who has been part of the journey within an organization. So ideally a HR professional, a learning and development professional, business leader within the organization, talking about the value that they've got by having a Toastmasters program. Then we have someone who explains a little more about the Toastmasters program itself, how it works, and why it works the way it does. Those particular skills that you pick up that aren't necessarily all that obvious. One of the speakers we had at 2 sessions ago was actually Pat Johnson, who many people know. She is so enthusiastic about the creation of corporate clubs. I've got her book. In fact, I've got several copies of her book about how to create sustainable corporate clubs. And she came along to one of our sessions talking about the benefits to organizations, and the benefits to organizations in terms of listening skills, critical thinking skills, getting your point across, meeting organization, and how being involved in regular club meetings contributes to that. We then, within the sessions, wrap them up and move to Q&A and informal sessions. So we've switched from being very high on presenting and much more to, here's a story of how an organization's got value, and here's a story about how or why from someone who's been intimately involved in that process and experienced it themselves. That's a summary of where we were, what we've decided to do, where we've got to now. And really the next stages for us are to continue to add these events, continue to do more of them. We are working on the design of a small LinkedIn campaign that is going to be focused on HR professionals, business leaders. We're going to start creating some videos built from the content that we started to produce. And I'm going to wrap up by saying it's been a journey. We're learning, we're continuing to learn. And I believe there's so much opportunity to work with other districts and other teams. We've started to have conversations with a couple of other districts already who want to run their own version of Empower Your Workforce, and we'll support them in doing it. Thank you very much for listening to me. I look forward to any questions. I hope you found it useful. Thank you. Nestor, I see you've got your hand raised.
In the spirit of collaboration, the same way that you offer that you're collaborating with our CGD, do you mind putting your PRM in contact with our PRM? That would be lovely.
Absolutely, Nestor. I'll make sure that we do that. Yes.
Thank you very much for sharing all of this. It was very insightful and we appreciate it. Thank you very much. I have no further question. All my answers has been suffice. My questions have been suffice.
Wow. So obviously I got the points across. Elizabeth Jordan, you've always got a question for me.
I always have a question for you because of my huge admiration for what you do. And I think this is an excellent series. And as you know, I've been attending them. So that's one of the reasons I'm here today. I think the other point that was very powerful at the session yesterday was the testimony, was Lachlan talking about his experience. And I think in talking about this, what is very, very powerful is that format where you have people actually talking about the difference it has made. It's not just talking about Toastmasters and history. This is actual change stuff. And I think that's really worth emphasizing because it's quite powerful. And I think in a room full of people, hearing how, say, pathways, the different pathways modules can help you progress, I think that could be extremely powerful. So I would, I'm really just backing up what you're saying and saying, please adopt this because there's lots to offer. So it's a comment rather than a question.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And for those who don't know Elizabeth Jordan, I think everyone in the world should know Elizabeth Jordan by now. She is our immediate past district director in District 71. She's been absolutely fantastic and a wonderful support to this program and everything that we've been doing. Elizabeth, it's great to have you there. And it also, you've highlighted something that I failed to mention. One of the things that we're doing with the online sessions is we record those sessions now. We record the sessions. We don't record the networking and the Q&A part. We just record the two speakers and the presentations. Part of the reason for that is we then send those recordings. We don't put them on our website. It's not, this is public information. But what we do is we then share that with other people who've signed up for any of the Empower Your Workforce series. So we've got about 150 email addresses now. Even if people can't come along to them, because they've signed up at some point, we will share the recordings of those sessions. The other thing that we've decided to do is it's different people every time. At one stage, we had a big debate about, well, why don't we just run a monthly session where we get Pat Johnson or whoever to just do this every month? And Elizabeth, as you very kindly pointed out, it's the variety of voices, the different perspectives that makes a big difference. And what I'm hoping is if we can run a lot of these sessions over time, with their permission, we'll end up with quite a collection of video testimonials and video stories that we could probably dip into, come back to, take snippets out of, and that those are the stories that we can start to share more broadly once we've run a few more of those sessions.
I see we had a good question from Founders District Club Growth Director. Founders District is in Anaheim, if for those of you who don't know. She had a question if we could have the form, share the form of like the copy of the form the guy shared from the corporate video, please.
Oh, absolutely. I will share that in the chat in a moment. And Leo, if I could ask you to just share contact details here, we can keep it.
I also see April. She posted her details also in the WhatsApp and the email, but you can send it to me and I'll send a message to you.
Thank you, April. It's a pleasure to have you here. Thank you.
District 71 Toastmasters.org. Show the value for those of you who didn't see it. And I see she posted another question. Do you see it, Steve?
Oh, I do. Sorry. Thank you, April,
Yes.
for repeating that. I hadn't noticed it earlier. I mean, I'll just read and April, feel free to come off mute. Please.
Just the part was still being recorded, so I was like, I wasn't sure. I did not want to interrupt when you were in the presentation part. I was like, put in the chat. What I wanted to ask about was amongst the three types of, I'll call them corporate clubs, the ones that were most integrated, where it was fully part of their staff development program versus the ones who are just encouraging and somewhere in between, were the ones that were most fully integrated. Were they staying in touch with, just like Pat tells us to do, but some of us have just been doing it without, we didn't know from reading your book yet, of where the corporate executives come in. I said at least 2 times a year, but even at least once a year, where someone who's an executive is coming in and championing, not just saying how great Toastmasters is, but where they're talking about how public speaking, communication, leadership, skill development impacted their career. And maybe in the really large corporations, because I know a number of us have those, or we have a field office, where that executive, ideally in person, is coming in and they're rotating from the different divisions. So it's, I don't mean Toastmasters divisions, I mean the corporate divisions, so that it's not just, oh yeah, of course, a sales executive is saying that, but how about the tech support of having all the different executives, not all, but different voices?
I think it's an excellent question. Thank you. I have seen it on my travels in a few clubs. Whether it's habitual everywhere, I don't know, but I think it should be. So thank you for the suggestion. And I mentioned earlier that corporate connect group. This is definitely something to be feeding back into that group that we want to do, to start sharing these ideas and inviting people to do that. Thank you.
I've got a question.
There you are.
When you say show the value, what I actually ask myself is, different corporates have different values. Have you found that to be somewhat true? Like some corporates, when you bring them one value, it'll work a little bit better than others, right? If I go and show the value to Ernst & Young, then it might be different than if I tried to bring the Toastmasters to, say, Intel Corporation, right? Or maybe some smaller startup. What have you found really works, or doesn't work, rather, as well?
Well, actually, you make an excellent point, and I personally believe, one of the biggest selling points of having a Toastmasters club or program, because actually when I'm talking to corporates, I don't use the word club. I talk about corporate programs, corporate education initiatives, because club, it sounds social. So for a start, the word club never leaves my lips when I'm talking to organizations and when I'm encouraging people to talk to organizations. Just a little side note, and I see April nodding here, and this is absolute Pat Johnson world, is we talk about program, we talk about education fees, we talk about facilitation, we talk about learning sessions, we talk about peer learning, not yet another meeting, because it needs to connect. Leor, back to your question about values. I believe the biggest benefit of having a Toastmasters program within an organization is it can reflect and support the values and the culture of that organization. If an organization is one that is highly collaborative and technology-led, then the Toastmasters Club will, by definition, end up being highly collaborative and technology-led, and probably, if they do it right, being able to demonstrate to others how you can use those technologies effectively to do even more. If you've got an organization that is very structured, regulated, formal, you'll probably end up with a Toastmasters Club that is structured, regulated, and formal. In terms of organizations that fit well and don't fit well, it has to be an organization that is comfortable with their employees developing in their own way. So if you've got an organization that is, here are our 17 training programs and you have to do this and we're very compliance led and you'll need your certificate and no, you can't possibly go do anything else, then they're going to struggle with the Toastmasters concept. I remember talking to someone recently as an organization who I was talking about developing skills in leadership. And one of the nice things about the program is even people who are not in leadership positions yet have an opportunity to lead initiatives, lead projects, lead a team to produce something so they develop their skills. And the comment that came back was, yeah, but we don't allow people at that level to do that kind of leadership, so it wouldn't work for us. And I found that interesting because it's not my approach. I found that very interesting. But in that environment, if that's your culture, it's not going to fit very well. I did make the comment of, wouldn't it be helpful if they did learn how to lead before you put them in the position where they had to do it? But that's a different approach. Elizabeth.
I was going to make a very, very quick comment. Even in those companies where they think people in lower echelons shouldn't be doing much, I think the fundamental thing is we all in the workplace have got to explain ourselves, present ourselves, and clarity, credibility, and confidence is of the utmost importance. So I do think, and there's a wonderful study by Deloitte, which I was trying to find where is that really shows this is communication skills, one of the top 3 things that are necessary. I believe that Toastmasters just has to find a way to really sell itself. It has a product that definitely is required. It's also, and I don't see why we are struggling so much because I work in the corporate world. I see it. I have to stand up every single day and speak to everyone from XYZ up to C-suite. What makes the difference is that ability to communicate. And I think that is what we've got to sell because it is so vital. So we just have to do it. What you're doing is brilliant. Empower the workforce. That's what we've got to do. Get it on TV, Steve.
Thank you again, Elizabeth, for that. And you're right. All organizations need people with these skills. Where I still believe we've got a challenge, a couple of challenges. One of them is organizations and HR leaders and learning development professionals are used to buying packaged content, training courses. Someone will come along and say, I can deliver you a 2-day training course on public speaking. Right, it costs X dollars, or it costs X euros, or it costs X whatever. Sign the paperwork, great, you're going to deliver it, whatever. What we're proposing is something very different. What we're proposing is creating a culture of peer learning, feedback, support, and empowerment. Kind of a difficult thing, and most learning and development professionals don't know how to manage one of those things. So the challenge, I believe, for Toastmasters is for us to teach learning and development professionals, HR professionals, and business leaders how to have a program like this and how that program can help within their organization. There's another little point, and then I'm going to wrap up, but it's something for us to be aware of, is when it is the paperwork, the processes, the understanding of what the having a corporate club really means. One of the challenges that we often see is, great, we're ready to go, we're ready to sign up. Now, please, can you complete these 700 assessments? I'm exaggerating slightly, but we need the privacy assessment, we need the IT assessment, we need the risk assessment, we need the compliance assessment, we need the SOX audit, we need the and they can be a challenge. Now, the team at World Headquarters are amazing if we position things well with them and if we ask them to do these things and help out. But as leaders in Toastmasters, we need to be familiar enough with what organizations need like that to be able to guide them through that process as well. So Nigel, I see your hands up, and then I'm going to have to hand back to Leo because I know he wanted to finish.
A really quick question. Who would you reach out to if you were reaching out to a company? Which person would you, how would you try and contact them or reach out to them?
always it would start with whatever they're called, but whoever is in charge of staff development. So that could be HR, learning and development, the organizational capability team.
Talent development.
Talent development.
Called.
Yeah, thank you, Elizabeth. There'll be lots of different names because, as with all these things, there are different trends. But it's the people within the organization that are responsible for that skills development, talent management. They're the people to engage with. And yeah, thank you. I'll stop at that point because I don't want to run over people's time. Leor, thank you again for inviting me. District 109 team, thank you for this wonderful set of events. It's a great opportunity to collaborate, a great opportunity to learn from each other, and I'm privileged to be part of it. Thank you.
Oh, well, thank you. I think you did a great job, and it's always fun hosting district leaders from other districts to see their perspectives, and especially because we're in the same region and we face many of the same challenges. So first of all, thank you, and I think you have a great initiative, and that's why I really wanted to feature you as well. And it's something that really has inspired us at District 109, and I'm sure in the other districts as well here. I hope so too. I want to also say, from Francesca, our district director, who just said, of course, that this is an amazing session, and I will agree with her completely. I want to say thank you to everyone here who attended. I hope you all enjoyed, or at least learned something. Steve, if people want to contact you, what would be the best way to contact you?
You can find me on the District 71 website, d71toastmasters.org, or via LinkedIn, and I'll post my contact details in the chat. And if you're a member of the Worldwide Club Growth Directors Group, I'm on there and would love to connect.
Great. So if we have any more questions, of course, afterwards, this is a good way to contact. And Steve has been nothing but a pleasure to work with. So I want to say thank you again for the Growth Acceleration series. It will actually still continue. We still have another 2 sessions scheduled. We have the next session on the 28th, this coming Monday. I will send the actual schedule again. It will be featuring Andre Ndoni, who was the person who helped to really bring Toastmasters into new geography, into Albania, and his whole view of how to really expand in that. So it'll be at the same time, 7 o'clock Central European Summer Time, and I hope to see you all there. It'll be the same link that we used for today. So if you think about how can I enter a new geography where there's no one, this is a good way to learn. So thank you, Steve. Thank you to everyone who's attended. This video will be uploaded to YouTube. Like, comment, subscribe, and see you all in the next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you.